Hey everybody, welcome to Mark My Words. John Mark here. Before I get into the main content of the video, I want to say a huge thank you to all my new subscribers. As I record this, I've only been on YouTube a few days and I definitely have more subscribers than I would have anticipated. So a huge thank you to each and every one of you. And one subscriber said, I really believe in what you're doing. How can I help? So I plan to get a Patreon up soon, but for right now, it's very simple. Hit the like button, comment on the videos. Even if it's a simple comment, YouTube likes that and they show the video to more people. You can also share the videos on your social media, and when you do, let people know the unique selling proposition of this channel. I come from a business background, and USP, or unique selling proposition, is what makes your product unique. What makes this channel unique is we are talking about solutions. There are a lot of right-wingers out there talking, but most of them are just arguing with the left or talking about what's wrong without really providing solutions. What we do here on this channel is talk about realistic solutions. It's a stoic approach to solving the problems the right wing in America is facing. We're cool, calm, and collected. We analyze what's going on and why. We abandon failed strategies, and we switch to strategies that give us a high percentage chance of winning and getting us everything we want, and then securing it for generations to come. So when you share these videos with others, share that USP with them. We talk about solutions for the right wing in America. And all of our analysis is for the purpose of getting to solutions that have a high percentage chance of succeeding. All right, thanks again to each one of you who has subscribed. I love interacting with all of you. I'm really excited about moving forward together. Now let's get to the main content of the video. Part 2 of a two-part series on why the left never learns. In part 1, we talked about why people of color, non-white people, have such a hard time embracing right-wing thought, most of them. In part 2 here, we're going to talk about why the white people that vote left wing, and why it's very, very difficult to move them off of that position. Most white people do not vote left in America, but about a third of them are pretty strong leftists. So I'm going to explain to you why talking to them and trying to give them logical arguments doesn't work very well. Some of them learn, but most of them do not, as we saw from the recent midterms. All of the typical demographics, including the typical demographics among white people that vote left, voted in the same basic percentages for left-wing Democrat candidates as they always do. Nothing changed. Decade after decade, year after year, the same demographics vote the same way. The only demographic that has changed in any significant way in recent years is white working class men switched from the left to the right because the left started demonizing white people and became globalist, and white working class men realized this was not in their best interest. That's the only demographic of people that has changed their voting pattern in any significant way. My goal for this two-part series is to get you to stop putting false hope in things that are not going to work, so that we can put our energy into something that is going to work. We can keep putting our message out there, but we have to realize this cannot be our primary strategy, especially given the fact that the left is importing non-white leftist voters from the third world at a breakneck pace and nobody is stopping it. We cannot teach people near fast enough to keep up with that. Without further ado, let's get into part 2 of why the left never learns. First of all, let's talk about the portion of white people that vote left consistently. The first major group of white people that votes left is women. If women had never been given the vote, this nation would never have gone left. There is a very good reason why the founding fathers did not give women the right to vote. Women have a mother instinct, and it is the most beautiful thing in the world in the context of a family. If we go back even thousands of years in the history of humanity, typically the men's bringing home the provision, the woman is taking it and distributing it to all the children. I want to make sure everybody has enough. That is the most beautiful thing in the world in the context of a family. As soon as you let that instinct enter politics, it becomes leftism. And it becomes theft. Instead of distributing provision that is being willingly given by the man, when this instinct enters the political realm, it turns into using the government to steal from people who are not willingly giving their money for this purpose and giving it to needy people. it turns into theft using the government. And the problem with this is it becomes dysgenic. The low IQ people having more babies than the high IQ people. When the mother instinct enters the political realm, it turns into taking resources from higher IQ people, usually the middle class people are the ones that get shafted the most, and giving it to lower IQ people. Because the people that are usually struggling the most in society are the lowest IQ people on average. Obviously, there are individual exceptions, but on average, it's usually the lower IQ people. So you're artificially suppressing the birth rate of the higher IQ people, and you're artificially increasing the birth rate of the lower IQ people, and you are doing the number one cardinal sin of a civilization, which is dysgenics. The number one requirement to have a first world nation is you must have a high enough average IQ in your population to support a first world civilization, which means your average IQ in your nation has to be somewhere close to 100. All the third world countries of the world have average IQs well below 100. That's the first requirement for a first world civilization. And so what you can see here is the niceness instinct, the mother instinct, the provision for everybody instinct is the exact opposite of what needs to happen to make a civilization increase in quality of life over time. What is necessary to build and maintain and grow a first world civilization is completely counterintuitive to the mother instinct. So when you let the women with mother instinct enter the political realm, their instincts are the exact opposite of what needs to happen at a civilizational level. So now let's break it down further. It's mainly single, childless white women that vote left. These are women that have a mother instinct with nowhere to go because they don't have their own children. So they take their mother instinct out on the neediest, most infant-like creatures that they can find, which in modern United States of America is third world immigrants. And they treat those third world immigrants as if they're their children. They can literally do nothing wrong in their eyes. The majority of the native population of white people perceive that third world immigration imposes costs upon them, but single, white, childless women are an exception to that. It's mama bear, which is a beautiful thing with an actual infant in a family environment. It's absolute disaster in the political realm. There are other issues with women in general. Let me go back to women in general. If you think back throughout history, if a tribe of men came in and killed all the men of your tribe and you're a woman, well, you just mate with the new men. I mean, that's what you do. So women are not designed by history, biology, evolution, whatever you want to call it. Women are not designed to instinctively reject invasion nearly as much as men. If you're a man and other men are invading your tribe and trying to come in and take your stuff and take your women, if you lose everything. You have nothing. Usually you're just dead or a slave. If you're a woman, well, you just mate with the new men. So women do not protect the assets of the tribe instinctively nearly as much as men. That's another reason you see women much more open to open borders. That's part of the psychology that's happening as well. Now let's go back to single, white, childless women. There's another reason why they vote left. It's not just a mother instinct with nowhere else to go. It's also the fact that feminism gives a lot of these single, childless women another way to have some kind of a decent life outside of the traditional family structure. So they gravitate towards feminism instinctively because that's another outlet for them if they can be in the workforce. So these women, they are heavy into feminism and they get into all these false narratives like men have oppressed women throughout history and that's why men have most of the great accomplishments in history. Well, that's BS. That's simply not true. But these women, they get into this radical feminism. They're pulled into that by their instincts, you see. You also have a lot of these women now, they slept around with a bunch of guys in their 20s. They never settled down with the guy because they were essentially a slut. They thought that their beauty would last forever and it didn't, and then it was too late. Or they married some guy that they are not really all that attracted to because they got desperate and they settled. In their mind, they settled. And then they divorce the guy. So you have all these broken women, and these women have a very strong psychological hatred for anybody that has a happy, normal family life. Husband, wife, children, grandchildren. So you can see, if you try to go to these women that I've been describing with a logical argument, how much power do you think that logical argument has in the face of all these powerful psychological factors? Let me tell you how much power it has. Logical argument has zero power in the face of these deep psychological forces that are happening in these women. Now let's go a layer deeper in this analysis. Another interesting layer to this is something Kurt Doolittle says, which is that the left in general is cognitively female. Even white men who vote left, if you look at the research, you could call them cognitively female. And this is largely based on the research of Jonathan Haidt on the different moral intuitions of right-wingers versus left-wingers. It turns out left-wingers have a much narrower range of moral intuitions than right-wingers. Left-wingers focus almost exclusively on care, and they have that moral intuition turned up to 11, so to speak. That's a very motherly instinct. It's a provision instinct. Now, it sounds great, but in practical implementation, it's actually a consumption instinct. That's a very important point. The left, in their cognitively female motherly intuitions, they feel as though their care and provision instinct is only a positive. They don't see any downsides to it. They can't grasp the fact that their instinct is really, at the end of the day, just to consume resources. They don't even think about the fact that they're consuming resources. To them, the resources are just there. A classic example of this is this Ocasio girl who just got elected to Congress with the room temperature IQ. She wants to give everything to everybody for free. And when she was asked how we're supposed to pay for all of it, she says, you just pay for it. It's like the resources are just magically there in their minds. Now let's contrast this with the moral intuitions of right-wingers. Right-wingers, and this includes some women too. Let's keep in mind these are statistically accurate generalizations, but there are exceptions. So most white men are cognitively male, but some of them are cognitively female. And most white women are cognitively female, but some of them are more cognitively male, at least when it comes to their moral intuitions and political instincts. So Haidt's research found that right-wingers have a much broader range of moral intuitions, and that they hold those different moral intuitions fairly evenly, and they kind of apply as needed depending on the situation. So if you look at that range of intuitions, you could very easily call it a more masculine or male set of moral intuitions. It's a production instinct, just leave me alone so I can produce, don't get in my way, and it's a conservation of resources instinct. Don't spend, don't consume, let's build and maintain our assets as a society. Let's make sure we stay strong as a group. And as Kurt Doolittle points out, you can divide the male instinct into a young male instinct to produce, and we could call that the libertarian instinct, and an established male instinct to conserve the resources of the tribe, which we could call conservatism. But both of these are cognitively male instincts. So if you think about the female moral instincts versus the male instinct, these instincts are in conflict. The instinct to produce and conserve resources rubs up against the instinct to provide and consume, and you get a war between the right and the left. It's quite literally the same thing as a husband telling his wife not to spend so much on credit cards and stop giving so much money to charity so they can save more for their kids' college fund and for retirement. Just writ large on a mass scale. And the left likes to claim that they're morally superior because they want to care and provide. But again, that sounds great until you realize that care and provision are just code words for consumption and a dysgenic society where your low IQ people have more babies than your high IQ people. One more thing I want to make sure to point out here. I'm talking primarily about white people when I'm talking about these moral intuitions. As far as I can tell, most non-white people in America vote left primarily out of ethnocentricity and racial solidarity against whites. Desire for fake status, like I explained in part 1. It would be great if Jonathan Haidt had broken out his research by race, But as far as I know, he didn't do that, which is too bad, because I would not be surprised if he did that, if it showed that white people demonstrate more of the care instinct than other races, at least when it comes to showing care for people outside your own race. Because white people of Western European descent are by far the least ethnocentric group of people on the planet, for very interesting historical reasons. And you just don't see any other group of people on the planet with this type of mother instinct aimed toward people of other races, like the white leftists operate in. It's funny, the Chinese, for example, they just can't figure out white social justice warrior leftists that fight so hard to help other races. That concept is completely foreign to the Chinese people, and really to anybody anywhere on earth other than people of Western European descent. The Chinese even coined a term for this, bai zhu. And the concept is kind of like the word cuck. Like, why on earth would you want to give your people's land and power and assets to other people who don't even like you and constantly antagonize you and can't find a single nice thing to say about you, and many of whom downright hate you and openly want to disempower you? Why would you want to do that? But this is because white people of Western European descent went through a very unique historical series of events that made us as a group naturally less ethnocentric. So that lack of ethnocentrism, which makes us naive, is being purged out of white people of Western European descent right now. It's a necessary process. We're being forcefully ripped out of our wishful thinking about other races being like us. They are not like us. They are openly ethnocentric. They don't care about anybody else. A, because they can't afford to, and B, because it wouldn't cross their mind anyway, because they didn't go through the same historical events that Western Europeans did. So white people of Western European descent were waking up from this pleasant dream to the horrible reality that no one else is like us. And it's not really a horrible reality, it's just normal, but it feels horrible after the pleasant dream of, boy, it'd be great if we can just make everyone else like us and they can just love us and we can love them and we can be one big happy family. It is not going to happen. They want our stuff. They want us disempowered. They would love us to be dead, or at the very least, below them. And they don't care if they get it by merit or by force or by lying or by cheating or by stealing or by colonization. They don't care how they get it. They just want it. And of course, I'm not talking about all non-white people, but the majority of them are sucked up into this mentality because that's a normal human mentality. So I'm explaining white leftists to you. And again, you see, this is not just political opinions we're talking about here. This is not people neutrally analyzing facts and coming to a well thought out conclusion. This is instinct, very deep-seated instincts and intuitions. And that's why it's so hard to break people out of this. It's very hard to break people of color out of their desire for fake status, and it's very hard to break white leftists out of their mother instinct. And then the other layer of difficulty we're dealing with when talking to white leftists in particular is that this mother instinct turns into a religion. And the religion is called social justice warriorism, which is just another word for communism. And it has all the same features, the same operations as a very intolerant religion like Islam. If you're a heretic and you don't believe and say and do exactly everything they want you to, they punish you immediately and severely. They call you a Nazi, they try to get you to lose your job. It's a religion. And the core tenet of the religion is that all people groups are equal, because it's a mother instinct religion. And these white leftists consider less successful non-white groups to be their children. And like any good mother, they don't want their children to be left behind. And if you try to tell them anything about their children other than that their children are awesome and the greatest thing since sliced bread, regardless of how factual or true it is scientifically, they don't care. They just care that you're insulting their children. They try to shame you, they punish you. They cannot handle it emotionally. It's too hard to accept. So, for example, I was talking to a leftist one time, and this is a very intelligent person, so it's not that he can't understand. But I tried to tell him one time about the very significant difference in average IQs between the different nations and people groups of the world. And he just looked at me and said, I refuse to believe that. That's a religious response, see? He doesn't care what the science says. He doesn't care what the truth is. He just can't handle it emotionally. He feels like it would be evil to question the religion, because he's been taught that anyone who's not a member of the religion is in the grip of Satan, is pure evil, is Hitler. And this is one of the big reasons we're headed for civil war in America, because this is a totally intolerant religion and they dehumanize. You want to talk about escalation towards civil war? This has been kicked into high gear because the left has begun to dehumanize anyone who is not a member of their silly religion. But this is another reason why it's difficult to talk to them. We're dealing with an intolerant religion that has tremendous appeal to massive segments of humanity. It appeals to white mother instinct people, non-white status-starved people, and they're ganging up on us. And that's why there's going to be a civil war, because you can't talk these people out of their religion, and their religion believes the white right is Satan. So I've explained to you the white people who vote left. It's not most white people, but those that do, the psychology they're operating in is very powerful. It's largely impervious to logical argument. You try to bombard one of these white leftists with logical arguments, to them it just feels like you're walking into their living room and insulting their kids. That's why they call us psychopaths and pure evil, because who would walk into someone's living room and insult your kids? Only a pure evil person would do that. That's what it feels like to them. We're just trying to be free to produce, and we're just trying to conserve the assets of our tribe and execute some form of quality control in our civilization, but they are incapable of grasping that because it's their kids we're talking about in their mind. What we're talking about is completely outside their intuition, and it conflicts with their instincts. Cognitively female white people vote left. You see the group patterns. These group patterns exist because there are deep psychological forces at work in these groups. And those forces manifest as statistics, voting statistics. So I don't have to belabor this, but you see the point. We are not moving the dial. And I'm not just saying this as a concept, I'm saying it because this is what the data says. If you look at the voting data, the same demographics vote in roughly the same percentages all the time. And yes, some people learn, as I keep saying, but it's just not enough, especially when you factor in third world immigration. So that cannot be our primary strategy. I've spent 2 videos now trying to really drive that point home with some specifics, some insight, so that you can see we're not going to win by continuing to play this losing game of just arguing with the left. So I encourage you personally, whoever you are, wherever you are, to shift your efforts from trying to convince leftists to taking moderate right-wingers over to the winning right, because we on the winning right are the only people that are sufficiently intolerant of the left to be an effective counter and to actually give right-wing instinct people what they want. The moderate right, the civic nationalists are not going to defeat the left. They cannot, because they share underlying assumptions with the left that give the left moral authority over them. They allow the left to shame the civic nationalists by saying, you're racist, you're racist, you're racist if you want to close the borders. Well, if white people of Western European descent keep getting flooded by non-white people, Western civilization is over, folks. That's it. And the only people who are willing to say that is the winning right. The civic nationalists are moving toward us right now because they have to. I just saw today, Mark Stein, a mainstream conservative commentator. He's pretty based, but he's mainstream. He's filled in for Rush Limbaugh. And I just saw a video that somebody posted where on his show, on Mark Stein's own show, he quoted Steve Saylor and showed a graph of African population growth by Steve Saylor. Think about that. A guy that fills in for Rush Limbaugh, the mainstream of the mainstream right wing, is quoting race realist Steve Saylor. He reads Steve Saylor. The losing right is moving over to the winning right because they must. They cannot win any other way. The pain of losing is moving them over to us. This is a tremendous opportunity. So I would encourage you to shift your efforts from trying to argue with leftists to moving the moderate right and the civic nationalist right over to the winning right. And use this line of reasoning. We cannot win any other way. If you want to be a loser, hold on to your old strategies. Because that's what caused us to lose. And in fact, is still causing us to lose. Just look at the voting statistics. That tells you all you need to know. As soon as we embrace winning strategies and toss the losing strategies to the side, we will be unstoppable. And we are already becoming unstoppable because a critical mass of us have cast aside these losing strategies. And we know what to do now. We know how not to make the same mistakes. It's been a painful learning process, but a necessary learning process. And as we go forward, we will be unstoppable. I hope this has been helpful. Subscribe to my channel for more insights on politics, the future of America, and how the right wing can and will win, and how we will get everything that we want. And not only get everything we want, but we now know how to maintain it permanently, because we now know how to build a leftism-proof government so that they can never even get their foot in the door. I'm going to be coming out with some videos explaining that. It's called propertarianism. I've got more videos coming out soon on fascinating topics, on winning strategies, on replacing losing strategies with winning strategies, on how the Civil War is likely to play out. Is there any way out of Civil War? All sorts of interesting topics, so make sure you subscribe. All the best. Thank you again to all my new subscribers. Hugs to everybody. I love and appreciate you all. Till next time. How much longer do we want to play trench warfare with the left? How many more times are we going to have to fight this battle? You know what my answer is? 0. 0 more times. This is going to be the last time. And if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will.